It's really showtime.
It really
Now that
is
the explosion
showtime.
is over.
That's right, because we're going to blow it up tonight, everybody. Welcome to California Free Radio. I'm Mike Netter, accompanied by Scott Piotr and Kurt English. Say hi, gents.
Hey, gents.
Hey, everybody.
Kurt, it's good to have you back. Everyone out there, we want to get this blasting everywhere. And as you know, it's on my feed at Netter Mike on X. So we're going to be getting back to my feed. Got some special announcements about that. We are on LinkedIn under Mike Netter, Facebook at Mike Netter, and on the Rebuild California groups. And of course, on the YouTube channel, Outraged, in case tonight's show doesn't tick you off enough. We want you to look at it and get extremely angry. Gentlemen, for me, it's been quite the week, and that's almost an understatement, and I'm going to get to me in 1 second. But why don't you, Kurt, hit us with a few stories to begin with here, because it's good to have you back and bring us up to snuff on a couple things. This, for everybody out there.
I will do it, Mike. But first, I want to encourage everyone to look at the Netter News that I just saw about an hour ago. It's action-packed with stuff about government corruption that'll make you mad, but is very informative. And Mike, this edition is a fantastically interesting edition.
Thank you, Kurt. We did focus on corruption because corruption in California is being way underreported. And we're going to spend a lot of our show talking about that.
Well, then I won't preempt that. We'll talk about a couple other things. We have some condolences to offer for Michael Reagan and California Congressman Doug LaMalfa, who died this week.
Both of those touch me because I spent some time with Doug LaMalfa. I had Michael Reagan on my radio show before. Michael Reagan, was close to 88, 89. Highly intelligent, very special man. Doug LaMalfa was a shock to all of us. I've got to tell you that Doug LaMalfa, I don't know how to put it exactly, and I've met a lot of politicians, but he is certainly somebody who believed in what he did, didn't need to do what he did, but fought a lot for the people, especially for the farming community, if you will, up there. And by the way, not to steal your thunder, in case you haven't heard, did you hear who's running for Doug LaMalfa's seat in the special election, Kurt?
No, I'm going to be the straight man, Mike. Who's running?
Thank you. James Gallagher. Yes, our buddy James Gallagher, who's headed up the state assembly, another political friend of mine, with the blessing of Doug LaMalfa's wife, he's termed out in the state assembly, and he is going to be stepping into that special election, which is coming up, running for Doug LaMalfa's seat. His assembly seat is part of that congressional territory. So for those that are writing off the Republicans with Prop 50, and we'll get back to that in a couple minutes, not so fast. This is going to be very, very interesting. Doug LaMalfa's seat is one of the ones that the Democrats tried to write out, and it looks like a little whiteout might be taken to their plan. Back to you, Kurt.
All right. I don't want to steal our thunder on all the corruption, so we'll talk about a couple of quick hits. First, there's a billionaire tax that the Service Employees International Union is threatening to try to qualify for California's ballot. And they said that it would be retroactive to any billionaire in California on January 1st, 2026. So, gentlemen, what do you think some billionaires did before New Year's Eve struck midnight?
Left town.
Called for the U-Hauls.
Yep. Well, as you said, Mike, if you had owned a U-Haul dealer the last 30 years in California, you'd have made a mint. But some of the Google founders left. Peter Thiel, one of the founders of PayPal with Elon Musk, left. And everyone needs to understand, when you attack billionaires and you're hostile to them, why are they going to stay? And these people created jobs. They provide a tax base in California. California's infrastructure is crumbling already. If you drive out all the job creators, which Democrats have done in this state for 35 years, and we don't have time to talk about all the examples here in our program tonight, but I've seen it firsthand. They're going to destroy the tax base, and the infrastructure will crumble at an accelerating pace.
Okay, so I have one comment to make.
Go
I have
ahead.
one comment to make on that. You have, like, let's say the founder of Google, the two guys, they're both some of those people that have left the state, right? Those guys and others like them are in large part responsible for the liberal wackos and the Democrat rule that we have. I mean, they basically funded Newsom and they funded this state and they fund the Democratic Party. And now when they get the policies that they don't like, they move out and we're stuck with their mess. If you
Well,
didn't have this high tech bubble and providing income from California, they would have met reality 2 decades ago. But because they haven't, now it's starting to blow up, and now we're left to clean up the mess. For those of us that can't afford to move or just don't want to give up the weather, I mean, we're stuck. We can't get out. We can't.
well,
We have.
what I've got to tell you, gentlemen, more and more people that I went to USC with, that I've worked with,
Are dead.
have left or are leaving. People are leaving California. The conga line is out the door and across the state line.
I mean, even if they stay in California, they stay 6 months and a day someplace else, and then come here for those other 6 months.
I want to talk about something, Kurt, that we discussed before the show. This isn't an ordinary tax for everybody out there. I've talked about this on a lot of segments. This tax is on unrealized gains, meaning explain what that means to our audience, Kurt.
Well, there are things in tax law called realization and recognition. A recognition event for tax purposes means that's when you pay the tax. So if it's an unrecognized gain, like your house has appreciated in value if you bought it in California a long time ago, or you may have publicly traded stock, or even worse, privately held stock in a private corporation that's illiquid. And if some state thug decides that it's worth $1 billion, they're going to try to take 5% of it. Now, I think that's unconstitutional. It's a taking in violation of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. There will certainly be litigation filed immediately after this idiocy passes, and I think it'll be declared unconstitutional 6-3 or better by the U.S. Supreme Court. So it'll never be enforced.
So put it in a way that us middle class guys can understand.
If you don't have the money to pay the tax because you haven't sold the house or you haven't sold the stock, you could go bankrupt.
Right. So if you own a house that you bought for $100,000 back in 1973, and it's now worth $2 million, they're going to hit you for a $2 million.
No, it's only it's a billionaire tax, Scott. It's not like
I know. I'm just trying to relate it to how the average guy can look at it. It's like and besides, what happens? It starts as a billionaire tax, and then all of a sudden, either we creep up in income because of inflation, or they start taxing lower and lower because the billionaires leave, and we're the only ones left. But to put it in realization, we buy a house for $1 million. It's worth $2 million, or we buy a house for $100,000. We're obviously living in it. We're not making money off of it. It's
not together. Let's be clear. We live in 3 separate homes. I don't want them to get the wrong idea, Scott.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate the clarification. Anyway,
an unnecessary clarification, as our audience knows, but nonetheless,
the $2 million is the value. You get taxed 5%. All of a sudden, you got to write a $100,000 check, or they take your house away, and you don't exactly have $100,000. Say buy a house. That's how it would affect the middle class, and the billionaires can afford a lot of it.
Well, to your point, it's a one-time tax as they're currently proposing it. But if it passes, they'll just put it on the ballot again and again, and they'll keep lowering the threshold.
And it'll be recurring. Yeah, why not? Why bother putting it on the ballot every time? Let's just make it an annual tax.
Well, and people will leave. And I know of a billionaire who left California, sold all his California real estate a number of years ago, seeing the direction things were going. And he told me he's being audited by the state for 2020, 2021, and 2022. And he said, yeah, I lived here in 2020. I'll pay the tax. But I'm not paying it for 21 and 22. I didn't live here. And he can prove it. Yeah, some people in California, Mike and Scott, they're taking the position that we're going to tax you for 10 years after you leave. And Florida is suing California because they're trying to tax Florida residents.
Which is an
Go
interesting point, by
DeSantis.
the way, kind of leading, teasing for the rest of our show a bit. Newsom's new budget, and Kurt, maybe you want to get to that, is about 326 billion, again up considerably from about the 118 billion with a B when he came into office. And the more money we give California, Minnesota, and blue states, as we call ourselves, it's unsupervised, and we don't know where that money goes. Right, Kurt?
We're going to talk a lot about fraud, but as you mentioned in the Netter News, which you can find at Netter Mike on X, there's $250 billion apparently that's unaccounted for in California, and the DOJ is looking into it. So Tim Walz and Gavin Newsom, lawyer up, big boys, because they're coming.
Okay, so Minnesota is being raked through the coals because they have a $9 billion fraud situation, 18 billion
Well,
in
9
subsidies
that we found so far with
that we found
suitcases
some
of
more.
cash going
But
out the airport.
so people need to understand California is looking at 250 billion, not just 9, but literally 26 times as much as Minnesota.
Which kind of makes sense. We have that much larger a population. And hold on, I want to jump in for a second here when I talk about Amy Reichard, who's been on our show before, what Nick Shirley did, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to play a little bit of video here in a bit before we get to even some of the main things I want to get to here today. Nick Shirley, and God bless him, I have communication with him, great young journalist, can go to Minneapolis in Minnesota, where most of the people are located, guys. Got it? Okay, there's not a lot of fraud going out with the moose on the upper plains there. California, due to our size and breadth and the number of people that we have and the nooks and the crannies and our population so much larger, and we have homelessness and we have great weather year round where you could commit fraud year round because nobody likes to commit fraud in 20 degrees below. It's just hard to do. The numbers kind of add up, and we know the numbers are that much bigger. Keep going, Kurt.
All right. So we know we want to cover a couple other stories till we get into the main fraud. I'm a graduate of Los Angeles Unified School District. When you could still go there, it's a disaster now, and you wouldn't want to send your kids. In fact, by the way, if you're watching our show, don't put your kids in public school; they'll destroy them. Los Angeles City Schools is sending out solicitations for people to apply for free government benefits, even if you're an illegal alien and aren't eligible for them. And they're providing instruction on how to obstruct ICE, meaning Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which are law enforcement officers validly enforcing the law. This is a school district doing this.
No, really? You could have blown me over with a feather. What can I say?
Well, in my opinion, that the federal government needs to get really tough with all this obstruction, and all these districts and the city of Minneapolis, the sanctuary states, they need to start prosecuting people for obstructing justice and obstructing law enforcement. The way to stop this chaos is to put criminals in jail. And if they're not going to enforce the law, why should we pay federal income tax? Why should we comply with gun regulations? Why should we comply with any laws if they're not enforced equally?
This picture is a picture of Iran and their women that are protesting and frankly being killed by the thousands compared to Minnesota. Yeah, okay, never mind. Babylon Bee offered to trade. We'll trade our liberal women for the Iranian women. Even up.
I actually, one of them, women that came over from Iran, got educated in the United States, and it teaches computer science at Cal State LA, was a bank manager here in Orange County. And I chatted with her, and I said, well, every time I see the Iranians protesting the Ayatollahs in Irvine, I give them a high five. I say, I support you. There's millions of Americans that support you. And the Trump administration is very wise if they overthrow the Ayatollahs. We owe them after
And
everything.
when we go back to the mainstream media here, and I want to kind of jump into a couple things here as the show trucks along, understand, I'm going to call it again, the mainstream media is shocking because Iran should be one of the lead stories. It's a country that's pretty large, that abuses women, that abuses pretty much anything you can think of. And the story, and I don't care about it's a media blackout. Look, I'm finding videos that I'm posting on at Nenner Mike about it. The media could too, and it's underreported. Let's dive into something to explain again. We touched on this last week. It will be in next week's Netter News. How important, and thank you to people posting right now that they've shared, how important what we do and what we speak, what Nick Shirley did, what Amy does, what Hilton, Steve Morgan, Michael Gates, all these people running. Let me explain something. Those of you that know me, I'm not a big celebrity, okay? I'm a guy that started a recall, certainly have a decent following at X, etc. But go ahead, Scott. You can. I know you're dying to put that tweet up, or if not, that's fine too. I had a tweet a week ago tomorrow that I put up that was on something that I think Trump and his team wanted to get out. Caroline Levitt retweeted it. Dan Bongino retweeted it about sonic weapons that we apparently used in Venezuela. And to let you know, and you think you can't do it yourself, that post has now exceeded 30 million views. I'm not saying that to pop off, well, maybe just a little. I'm saying that to let you know that simply the stories that we put out there can get out because social media has a way of exceeding the mainstream media. And the mainstream media is picking and choosing, obviously, this just in, what they want us in the public to hear. We have the ability, and I've offered this before, any of you that want a lesson necessarily, maybe we'll give one day on the show, how to really use Facebook, LinkedIn, X, etc. We will talk about it and show you how to use this tool. It's important to note that we have the ability to pick and share what we think is important. I'm honored to say what I'm doing, apparently, the White House thought was important enough to push that story out. It has now gone worldwide. This, you can read it. It's been now, you sure you can find it fairly easily. It's been on Fox News. That simply that we want to know that FAFO with America. Don't do it. And we could do the same to Iran, South America, Mexico. We're not always right, but we're worth listening to. And for the people that think they are going to attack federal agents, that are going to do all these wrong things, we're pushing those stories out too. And the mainstream media is pushing one side of the narrative, sonic weapons. And they've been in, for those that say, I had a lot of people that say, it's science fiction, it doesn't exist. Fox, God, I forget the name of the reporter. He put it out Sunday morning, honored to say with my post again, or tweet as we used to call it. He did a report on these back in 2013, where he himself kind of experimenting with them. Not experimented, but got subjected to them, shall we say. Peter Doocy. These are real. And there's another one I put out today talking about, we have laser technology to bring down drones. We got a lot of pretty cool science fiction type stuff that there's a lot you don't know, trust me, but there's a lot we do know. And we need to get the word out because the mainstream seems more interested in talking about people trying to get in the way of federal agents, getting hurt because they're getting in the way of federal agents, which is against the law. Gentlemen, weigh in on that really quick. I'll be right back after another thing here.
Well, I don't know about sonic weapons being against the wall, but the account that Mike came up with, and that's one of the things that, Mike, we're going to want to ask you when you come back is, how did you come up with the story? It's not like you were down in Venezuela talking to this, guard, part of the Secret Service, so to speak, of Maduro. And all of a sudden, this guy's interview with somebody talking about these weapons, which basically said, "Man, we were prepared for anything, but we were not prepared for anything."
Well, Scott, to answer your question, I was down in Venezuela picking up a shipment. I mean, never mind. No, what I do, folks, and here's the secret sauce. It's not that secret. I spend a lot of my day combing, looking for the stories that the mainstream media doesn't cover. I then verify, found the interview, which had barely had some other views. Some other account had found it too to get them full kudos, and put them out. And that's what I do. And most of the stories, and I make mistakes. I'm a citizen journalist, Scott. What I did is I found something that looked legit, that verified legit, and put the story out. You don't have to be doing. I've interviewed a lot of great people, but you don't always have to do the interviews yourself. And as they say, even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. This is a nut that I found. And for everybody out there who thinks I just grind away at it, Scott, every day. You know that I put out 30 to 40 posts a day on my various media of what I think is interesting and I think the public needs to know about. Another one that didn't go viral, for example, is Tim Walz has his own legislature filed impeachment articles against him. Now, they probably won't pass because it's a Democratic site, but that has got no mainstream media either. This is a legit story that's out there that's not getting passed around. So this particular story, I found the YouTube video was originally in Spanish. And it was somebody interviewing him. Again, we don't know who the soldier is. We don't know who the interview is.
And just to be clear, you don't speak English. You don't speak Spanish, right?
No, I do speak English, though, but thank you for correcting yourself. For those of you out there, I do speak English. I do not speak Spanish. Okay? Especially for those of you out there having been around the world, Venezuelan Spanish, which is different than the regular Spanish, that of which I speak some. So no, I don't. We managed to get it with captions on it. And I want to call out Snoops, by the way, who put out a story the other day saying, we don't know if the article's true. We're not denying it. The White House seems to think it's true. We reached out to Mike Netter for comment. No, you didn't. Possibly a German journalist who didn't identify themselves reached out to me and said, I'm a German journalist. That's it. So Snoops, you're supposed to be the fact checkers. I'm going to fact check you from your story from 48 hours ago. If you want to reach out to me, I'm easy to find. What I do is I distribute other people's stories, okay? I'm not the news maker, I'm the news distributor. And that's how I found that story, Scott, because I comb looking for things that I think might be of interest.
So Snoops, what? Read your story and decided that it was false?
No, they didn't have an opinion on it. What they said in their article, and again, if you Google Mike Netter and news, which is scary to say, there's been over 100 articles written on this in the last week. They wrote in an article they put out yesterday, because I'm on alerts for when my name is used. They said, we've reached out to Mike Netter for comment, and as of this writing, he has not returned it. If he tells us we will, they have not. And if they had the guts to really be real fact checkers, I would tell them the exact same thing I'm telling on the air. And I hope whoever the Snoops reporters are, because they don't label their stories, happy to talk to you, discuss, and tell you the exact same thing I'm telling you right now. Don't come under the guise of a German reporter, maybe, if that's who it was. So Snoops, I'm fact checking you. Fact check your own articles is the way that you research it. I generally trust 80% of what you say, but the reality is I now am bound to 50% because I don't trust now the way that the fact checkers fact check. Shocking, since you lean a little bit left, and I'm going to put that on the table.
So wait a minute. First of all, they don't lean a little bit left. They lean a lot left. They are a biased so-called fact checker, right? And so why does it surprise you that they sit there and say, oh, we checked with Netter and he didn't come up with anything good? No, that's bullcrap. They don't do any of that stuff. They just post what they want to post online, and they try to get away with it as being a fact checker that, they're above politics.
I'm just surprised when they out and out a blatant lie like that. I get that they lean a left, but can you try to hide it just a little bit? Because if you watch my videos and watch who I am, remember my pronoun starts with an A and ends with an E. I'll let you fill in the letters in between, and I will speak up against you, morons, okay? And snoops, if you don't have the guts to get out from behind the keyboard and have a conversation, I'm not that hard to find, okay? Then I have the guts to say, I don't trust your fact checking. And that's what amazed me, Scott, that they put in a line like that, not, I guess, realizing that I've got a pretty good platform to shout back at them.
Yeah. Yeah. So this illustration you see on screen is from the Snoops, or I call it Snopes, website, which actually is not a bad illustration with Karen Levitt in the corner and all the soldiers dying of some sort of painful thing to their ears. So I mean,
Or they were dying, or just disabled?
No, they were just
who
disabled.
knows?
What it said is that these guys came, and again, I don't want to go too deep into this. Read about it. This has been broadcast out there. They were hit by a sonic wave, is the best way to put it, which made them sick to their stomach, disabled them so they couldn't fight. We had documented, fact check this, Snoops. We killed about 200 of highly trained people, plopped in the middle of a military base where Madero was held. We lost 0. Can I hear that figure of our casualties again?
0.
Thank you. They lost 200, and we were in and out. And if anybody thinks we did it with machine guns and ballistic missiles, that's wrong, and it's never been in the middle of a firefight, and I will leave it at that. And it's pretty apparent that I'm going to leave that the government probably for whatever reason didn't want to issue it itself again. I'm just lucky, not well connected. You could be as lucky as I can. Okay. It's really, really simple. Okay. Thank you, Magdalena. We want to do on a repeater there, but I want to get to some other breaking news. My week has been crazy. Just so everyone knows, I am blessed enough. I was reposted by Elon Musk, reposted on a different thing this is a different thing by Elon Musk, a different thing by James Woods. God bless you all for helping us spread the word. You have way bigger platforms than we do, but my point is, anybody out there can do it, and I encourage you to.
Mike, will you give us a quick update on the progress of the CEO Act and the petitions and the Save Prop 13 Act and those petitions?
100%. Thank you for bringing it up. So there's 3 major petitions that I've been working on. There's also Fix Prop 19, which is coming out. The CEO Act, which you know is the School Choice Act, is actually out of the gate very strong. We've hit, shall we say, 6 figures on signature collecting. You have to get out there. It is citizens initiative, not backed by big money. Voter ID, can I have a hurrah, please? Looks like it's qualified for the ballot. That's why we're not talking a lot about it. We need your signatures on the CEO Act. Save Prop 13, which I'm going to be at a KABC and tomorrow, Pineapple Hill. Come, it's free. You have that kind of money. Okay, and we're going to be there with KABC Radio, and we're going to be sponsored by my friends at Howard Jarvis, and we're going to be collecting signatures there. And I want to be, that's a Kurt, and thank you for that lead-in, by the way. Save Prop 13 means what Kurt opened with is a way we want to stop what has slipped through is you no longer need a 2/3 or 60% majority to raise taxes. They simply slipped on us. Just one vote over 50% can allow them to raise taxes, which shocking they will continue to do so they have more fraudulent money to spend. We have about another 3 months on the CEO Act and about another 60 days on Save Prop 13. These are being done on fumes, folks. There is not big money behind it like the unions who are trying to tax billionaires so they could drive us out of the state and tax us more. Donate to those. You'll find them on my feeds. You will find them in my newsletter, Netter News, okay, where you could just click, print out these petitions at home, an 8.5 by 11, and sign them and mail them in. We cannot make it easier for you than that.
Mike, you may remember that the federal government has told states they cannot issue commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens, including illegal aliens who do not speak the English language and can't read the signs on the roads. But California has refused to comply, and the feds have taken away $160 million in federal funds. Do you have any updates on that?
Well, Gavin Newsom apparently thinks he can give the same signal to the federal government that President Trump did to the Ford worker yesterday. And if you don't know what that is,
You mean half the peace
half
sign?
the peace sign, right? And it's not this finger. Okay. So, and he found out the difference is that Trump is president of the United States, and Gavin Newsom, although he thinks he's king of all mankind, is simply governor of California. They've yanked federal funding. They're violating federal law, and it's pretty simple. Okay. Those driver's licenses will be yanked. They are yanked already. It is illegal for those people to drive, and the government has yanked $60 million in funding, which the liberal press likes to whatever. I want to give another big update, which is there's two other updates I want to make sure I get to here. Okay. Update one, for those of you who know, I am a plaintiff in the Prop 50 case. This federal appellate court ruled against us to.
Mike, can you remind people what Prop 50
I
is? What we're
Prop
talking about?
50 was the official gerrymandered thing that we put on the ballot, where Gavin Newsom decided to redraw the districts. We claimed it's racial gerrymandering. We partnered with the DOJ. There are 19 plaintiffs. David DePango is the main one of our great state assembly people. 3 weeks ago, or whatever the heck it was, we went to federal court. They just issued the decision against us yesterday. Hold on. They issued the decision against us. No false hope here. It is a very tough road. But right before I came on the air, I got from the Dillon Law Group, still a plaintiff, and I can say this, it's public knowledge. We have filed the appeal for this to go to the Supreme Court. It is an uphill battle. We're asking for donations. We're asking for prayers, but we are with the DOJ, and I am now a plaintiff, or hopefully, if the Supreme Court decides to take the case. I also want to state, before you gentlemen go on, that the judges in this case were fair. I don't always agree with necessarily what they are, but the judges were attentive. They paid attention. Just because they make a decision that I don't agree with doesn't mean necessarily that I don't want to slam our judicial system every time we don't agree with something, because we got another fantastic decision from the Supreme Court just yesterday, and you guys know what that is?
Yes, there was a 7-2 decision that said that candidates have standing in federal court to challenge elections.
A box of Snickers to you, -1 because I like them. It also includes voters. And what that means is everybody out there, this was a case, who was it, a guy out of Indiana, Illinois? Help me out there, Kurt.
I forget where the original
what
case
that
was.
means is this. Previously, they said people cannot, this is about mail-in ballots coming in mysteriously after elections. Okay, let's just call it what it is. Fraud! Okay? And
election stealing,
election fraud, call it what you want. And that means citizens and candidates who aren't elected now have standing across the country to challenge those elections. This is really, really big. And of course, in the mainstream press, you've heard, well, that would be nothing. Okay, it might be on page 6, so to speak. So the court, and by the way, I believe it's Kenya Brown. What's her name?
Ketanji Jackson Brown.
She sided with the decision. They call her an old school liberal sometimes. So again, there are extreme liberals and extreme Democrats, and there's Democrats which are normal. She sided with the majority, with the conservatives on this case. So again,
So Mike, are you saying Sotomayor and Kagan voted the wrong way?
I'm just saying they possibly did. I'll leave it
at
that.
They voted the way they always vote, with the liberal wackos.
Right.
Come on.
Be careful, because I'm going to be up before the Supreme Court.
I don't have to be careful. They're
I
nuts.
get it, and you
Go ahead.
don't, but I've been warned by the attorneys, be nice.
As
Shut up.
Mark Levin would say, they're dumb as a post and they're low IQ.
And please, watching
Mike
this
won't
show,
comment.
because my social media is comb, that quote was by Scott Piotr, not by Mike Netter. I am neither confirming or denying that I'm agreeing with it. But I'll leave it at that.
The three liberals on the court rarely vote and separate their votes. I'm surprised that Ketanji Jackson Brown had some sort of a epiphany, or maybe she voted wrong by accident. Who knows?
Well, she doesn't even know what a woman is or whether men can get pregnant.
And there's other
Well,
big
I loved it.
for her.
I loved it. And I'm digressing here a little bit, but I loved it. They had this week. They had the presentation in front of the Supreme Court on whether women should be allowed in men's sports, and I think it was Clarence Thomas asked a question, basically saying, "Can you, to the ACLU attorney, can you define what a man and a woman is for me?" And they go, "No, we don't. We cannot offer any legal description or definition of that. So you're asking me to make a decision based on men and women, and you can't even define them." And she was speechless, which was probably a first for her. Anyway, go ahead. So yes,
we have a chat comment that's interesting from a Fugue Endomanar saying, please investigate Newsom appointed Judge Anna Huang. Either of you guys know who she is?
No, but make a note of that, because we do try to look at everything, and that's what we do as citizen journalists here. So just be aware. Make a note of that. If you could, somebody write that down and text that to me, or please, whatever. We will look into that, which is a big problem we have. When we talk about fraud, by the way, and your electric bills going up, much of it is what lies beneath. And we know about the big ones. We know about the bullet train, the undocumented aliens. We know about the illegal aliens. We know about the homeless. But you've got to understand that fraud is built one brick at a time, just like the maps were drawn in court, one district at a time. And before I forget to say something, I also want to state one of the big stories here that's not really being reported. And I'm going to do articles on that later in Netter News. Paul Mitchell drew the maps. One of the reasons, in my not so humble opinion, we only got 2-1 versus not in our favor, is Paul Mitchell was not allowed to testify. And by the way, if you follow Netter News and follow a lot of these things in there, you will find that the judge, Honorable Judge Lee, who wrote the opinion in our favor, he had said in court that, look, we've never had a case where the map maker refused to testify under what's so-called legislative privilege, okay? But the reality is, for everybody out there, I want to be very clear, back to Prop 50. The legislature didn't draw the maps. Paul Mitchell drew the maps. And for those of you, whether you're right, whether you're left, for some of the liberals who watch me, thank you for following my feed. Keep those comments coming. It's good for business. I'll leave it at that. The legislature that you vote for didn't draw the maps. And Kurt, as a matter of public record, and Scott, as a matter of public record, do you know who paid Paul Mitchell to draw those maps?
Newsom.
No, Mike. Newsom paid him.
Newsom.
No. Nor the state of California. The DNCCC, the Democratic National Central Committee, are the ones that paid. So an outside national, and by the way, this isn't that unusual. What's unusual is all this that was done was paid for by the DNCCC, who also stood up in court and sided with the state of California. That to me is a really big story. I want you to
that's their congressional campaign committee. So that's the committee trying to get a Democratic majority back into the Congress, which is all about what this was about.
And I understand that, and it's legal. But to be clear, that committee conspired and put in the money to pay a map maker, not part of the legislature, no one out there, liberal or conservative, elected Paul Mitchell. Nor did we ask the DNCCC to come over and reminding everybody out there, override something that the public overwhelmingly voted in.
So why is it that the judge allowed him to not have to testify when he wasn't even paid by the freaking legislature?
Legislature, executive, whatever is a thing in law for everybody out there. You can help me, Kurt, with the term. Again, full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer. Basically is the term that says, and this is interesting, if I'm having a conversation in the hallway, not a meeting, something that I'm allowed to do that shouldn't be matter of public record, right? And I say, hey, I really don't like Scott Piotr. Sorry, Scott, I'm picking on you. Let me make this more logical. I really don't like Kurt. Okay, that's a comment I made and doesn't have to be
Then you would be foolish,
I know
Mike.
that, Kurt. It's just an example. But my point is that when you do that, that is a comment between legislatures or someone that the legislature has hired. He hid behind it. He used it something like 60 times in his deposition. So he used that also as the reason that he didn't want to testify. And apparently, is it a time-tested attribute of law that the courts are reluctant to have conversations between legislatures, if you will. They consider that to be a private conversation and have it put out there. That's the court's right.
So you could conspire to break the law. You could conspire to commit insurrection. You could conspire to commit racial discrimination, and you can't depose them and they can't testify. Are you kidding me?
Yep, exactly. And Marvin, I see your comment there. That's actually an interesting point you're making. That's why it makes it difficult to explore much of these things. And I see the other one here too. Some of the other.
By the way, if you sue them civilly, I don't think any of those things apply.
Yes, they do.
Oh, really?
Yes, they do. It is time-trued and tested for that.
It's a constitutional carve-out.
Because they are elected officials having a conversation which is considered to be private. Again, for everybody out there, I've only seen Perry Mason in black and white about a dozen times, but talking with the lawyers at the Dillon Law Group, it is well within the court's auspice to do it. This was a major case. Now.
All right. Well, Mike, in the time left, we don't want to miss out talking about the corruption and the stolen money in California.
Absolutely.
Because I know you want to do that.
Yeah, let's start with much of the corruption. You as citizen journalists have to investigate something. I put out a video today from a gentleman in Santa Cruz that I want to, Kurt Scott, if you could play that for us. This is not going to go viral with 30 million views. I hope it does, so don't feel bad about sharing it, okay? But this is from something going on in Santa Cruz. Scott, do you have that video?
So it's about 3 minutes long. How much do you want to play of it?
Until we decide we get bored of it, which is our production rights to say, give us about a minute and a half of it so we can get the gist of it.
All right, I'm going to start it.
And I'm going to repost.
I just helped take down a $5 billion money laundering scheme. It got banned from Reddit, Nextdoor, and put on an FBI watch list in the process.
Let's walk. Time to go.
Excuse me, who are you?
This is the absolute batshit true story about the Santa Cruz rail trail scam. Now, most of the developed world understands that trains make a lot of sense if you have the population density, tax base, and economic centers to support them. Santa Cruz is not that. We're the second smallest county in the state, with the only real industry being mountain bikes and a flying car company. And for people to afford the most expensive housing market in the country, about a third of workers commute over Highway 17 to make a buck in Silicon Valley. Nothing that necessitates a train along the coast. And with no freighter economic centers, the line's been abandoned for 20 years. And this is where shit gets crazy, because one day the second smallest county decided to build the most expensive per capita commuter train in the world, $4 to $6 billion. And public support for the project all hinged on the guarantee that there would also be a bike path. But for obvious reasons, a bike path alongside the rails ends up costing 50 to 80 times more than if you just put it on top of the rail bed, requiring 30 new bridges, loading concrete viaducts, retaining walls, grading, and drainage. And with the capital cost of $2 million per train rider, you might as well pay these people to quit their job and stay off the freeway. Now, the project would make a...
So yeah, he said you'd be better off, based on the probably the inflated ridership, that you could pay each of those potential riders $2 million to just stay off the freaking freeways and stay home. They wouldn't have to work.
By the way, my friend Oren, I've spent time with him up there, in Santa Cruz. It is a lovely town. It really is. Just cabins, beach, everything's close.
Mike, I've been there on the beach on 4th of July, and in the unincorporated area of Santa Cruz County on the beach, they have a wonderful fireworks show that you can see all over the beach areas below the cliffs there. It is a wonderful
Really, as liberal as they are, I'm surprised they celebrate the 4th of July.
That video was by David Date. I'm reposting that right now. Give it some love.
So, Mike, I have breaking news. Would you like breaking news for California?
I would like breaking news, Kurt.
The Los Angeles Dodgers just signed Kyle Tucker, 4 years, $240 million.
I would like to tell everybody after this show, my next call is going to be to Kyle Tucker to see if he'll be a sponsor for us. Because that we do need donations. I don't pit that often, but donate to Rebuild California. Kyle, we now know that you can afford it. Give us some love at Rebuild California. Help us sponsor this show. That's good news for the Dodgers, not for us Padre fans, but we'll deal with that.
Yes, for us Dodger fans, three-peat is coming, Mike. We got Diaz from the Mets. Let's go. All right, corruption. So your friend Katie Zachariah has exposed a lot of this corruption on her YouTube cast. I think that you probably have posted her stuff on your X feed at Netter Mike. And California is being probed by the feds. And Steve Hilton and Jen Kearns are now estimating up to $250 billion in potential fraud and waste just in California.
Now let's jump in on that, by the way, because I Googled this with AI because I'm not that smart. I mean, all the intelligence I can get. And the Steve Hilton, Herb Morgan fraud lead tips, of which they got over 250 of them, actually did have an impact on Trump bringing somebody in, more than somebody, a number of people in to start really investigating fraud like in Minnesota. And by the way, Kurt, another breaking story this week is there as an attorney general being appointed in the United States to investigate fraud because of not necessarily because of, but in addition to absolutely, yeah, we haven't even gotten this. We'll probably hopefully get to this next week there. Bonta, everybody in California in government has stuff brewing against them. It's important. Very important. The fraud, corruption, go to Netter News. I've documented a lot of corruption in there. But you have to understand, I said this, I believe, last week, and I want to say this again. Think of what Nick Shirley did. God bless him. He drove him out of Minneapolis and saw a children's center where they misspelled learning as leering, which I thought was
You mean the illiterate immigrants?
I said this last week, and I'm going to say this again. When you see a building that's supposed to be an old folks' home, or a kid's home, or some kind of to feed the whatever, and you see no cars in the parking lot, stop by. Take a look, take some pictures, get us those tips. Scott, do you remember the story I talked about Boston last week? Kurt, you were out of pocket. Do you remember that story?
I was out on assignment, as you recall, Mike.
That's right.
No, tell me.
A story in Boston to make you show how much fraud is in our face, and it's all over California. In Boston, there was a store that cashed something like 10 to 20 million a year in EBT money, right? They took an EBT. This is in Boston, right? They took an EBT monies, they cashed it, and somebody went in the store. Let's say,
how big was the store, by the way?
Very small store, but let's put that down. Let's say the size of a 7-Eleven. You want to know what's shocking? Ready, boys? They had no inventory. They had nothing to buy. And so somebody said, well, this is a little bit weird. You take EBT. They saw something, said something, And the feds discovered, well, you cashed 10, 20 million in EBT over the last 12 months. Can you show us the inventory that you bought to sell these people this stuff? They didn't have any. And Scott, what did I say last week? What most upset me about this plan?
What, that you didn't get in on it early?
Exactly. Why didn't I think of that? I mean, seriously, it's like, why didn't I
Well,
just pull in the
because Mike,
store?
you're a white guy, they'd have thrown you in jail already.
Yeah, I mean, and simply, it's something that simple. If you walk in a small store because you're on the road, you want a soda, you want a Coke, and they say we take EBT, and there's no inventory, report it. If you go by a parking lot and it looks empty and it's supposed to have kids and you don't see any kids, report it. If you see something, say something. These stories, well, you saw about the Santa Cruz train. God bless. I'm going to look up his name here really quick again. David Date, who did this great video on it, another unknown citizen journalist, if you will. Not for long. David Date, I'm making you famous, okay? He simply said, isn't it kind of weird that this beautiful, wonderful town, right, has a many of the bullet chain? Remember, the fraudsters, like anybody else, work their way up the food chain. And the guys getting the contracts in Santa Cruz, Riverside, another video I haven't even put out yet, hired all these outside contractors to manage their own property. Okay, and you got to go, well, I'm a little bit confused here. Why do you need people to manage what you own? The story's deeper than that. Every time you see something, say something. The
Well,
federal
yeah,
government.
and I'm sure that the way that guy worked with the EBT cards in Boston, it was more of a, come on in with your EBT card, $100 EBT card, I'll give you $50 for it. And they
Boom.
were happy to get the cash because they could use it for drugs and alcohol and other things they couldn't use it for otherwise. And he made, 50% of the value. And literally,
100%.
they had a picture of the store in the article, and the thing wasn't bigger than like a 15 by 15, room. That's it. There's no way that guy was selling $20 million worth of stuff out of that store, and he just happened to be out of all of his inventory right then and there. The guy
No
was
record of
obviously
even
laundering
ordering.
it.
No, and this is my point, everybody. The fraud, what I documented, the corruption, what we saw with Dana Williamson, which I put out today, which we quickly forget in the news cycle, who did something very simple with Becerra's campaign account, which he allegedly, for those of you not watching, that's a wink, knew nothing about. But two of the three people have already pleaded guilty. And Dana Williamson, oh, yeah, she happened to be Newsom's chief of staff. If you thieves flock together, the old saying, obviously they do. This corruption is widespread in California. The homelessness we talk about, where the money went when you drive around LA, you will see all kinds of centers. And if you see illegal aliens in them, that money is supposed to be used for the homeless. And for those of you out there that think someone else is taking care of it, Kurt, so what are some of the stories I had in there this morning?
All right, let's see. In the vein of this corruption, there's a fake child care scam like Minnesota, like Columbus, Ohio, in San Diego. Amy for San Diego talked about that on her page on X.
Yep. Amy Reichert, our buddy who's been on the show, we're going to have her on again. She's doing exactly what we said, going around San Diego and documenting this, fake child care, etc. Hit me with another one because we could spend 6 hours documenting.
Oh, we're going to love this one. So Kamala Harris has been whining about climate change and the oceans rising and flooding coastal communities for years with her lies about all this climate fraud. And she and her lawyer husband just spent $8.2 million to buy a seaside mansion in Malibu. I guess she's not really that concerned, Mike and Scott and our listeners, about the oceans rising, or she wouldn't buy an oceanfront house.
The only thing she's concerned about is her checkbook rising, which is another thing relating back to fraud. This whole climate change scam, and we'll go into that again in a future show. And I'm calling it a scam because it's not a matter of whether or not you believe in climate change. We built big solar farms, okay, that don't work by contractors that are making a lot of money. And all that's done is up the price of electricity because they're so expensive to run. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because the expletive deleteds, okay, are making a lot of money on it, and then they charge a lot of money to the utility companies, and the utility companies turn around and charge us, and then the solar farms shut down, and this just in, once the money's spent, we don't get it back. It is not only a hoax, I don't even think hoax is the right word, Scott.
Well,
It's a scam.
but Mike, we learned about real climate change in elementary school. It's called the four seasons: summer, fall, winter, and spring.
I've heard of that, as a matter of fact. It's also a hotel I've stayed at before, way overpriced, but really good service. But let's put that down for a second. Look, everyone out there, when we talk about fraud and you think of things in billions and you're used to seeing big infrastructure, big things like rocket ships like Elon Musk going up, you used to see big things and we talk in billions. The billions are an aggregate of millions, and those millions are an aggregate of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 at a time, transactions taking place right in front of you. And I wanted to get to this point before we end our show. It's not because the feds aren't watching and prosecuting. Stop waiting, as I said last week, and I say quite often, as a matter of fact, for someone else to do it. The feds are people too. ICE agents are people too. There's only so many of them. Okay. And they can only do so much, and they're attacking as much as they can. But you're an American. It's up to you. We used to call them citizens arrest. Now we call them citizens journalism. And that's your way of spotting things that don't quite look right. Gentlemen, believe it or not, we've almost burned through an hour here. Kurt, give me a closing blast. Scott, give me a closing blast, and I'll shut her down.
All right, we talked about the problem with driver's licenses and illegal aliens and truckers. So there was a California trucker wearing a turban who tried to park in the middle of the highway, blocking the entire highway. But don't worry, the DMV is so competent that 325,000 people must get reissued their California real IDs to travel on an airplane due to DMV error.
Isn't that special? Because no one's more efficient than the DMV. What's another thing the DMV does, Kurt?
Well, remember what Reagan said. He said
Register voters.
socialized medicine would have the competence and efficiency of the DMV and the
Bedside manner.
Yep.
the post office.
The winning thing is we've also put them in charge of voter registration. Kurt, it is a delight to have you back. Next week, I will be on remote site, so I'm going to depend on you to bring in even more of your fabulous notes and stories there. And
but Mike, before we go, everyone needs to go to @NetterMike and look at the Netter News and the stories today. It is a cornucopia of corruption.
Well, there you go. Wow, I don't even know a word that big, but Kurt, I'm assuming cornucopia is a compliment. Well, of course, when it comes to corruption.
Hey, don't I get my rant?
I was going to you next. I was going you next up in the queue.
Like, what's up? Hey, this week stories came out about our reservoirs in California. They're bursting. They are full. Even though Newsom has removed 3 dams and destroyed 3 reservoirs without replacing either the electricity that they produced or the water that they stored, even though he's got a voter mandate to do such. But because of the climate change, we're supposed to have droughts in our future forever. And now all of a sudden, the water's full. I guess God had a different idea than what Newsom and the climatologists were trying to say. Climatologists, I kind of like that word. It kind of reminds you of the lunatics, the Scientologist types. faux science. It's all political. And that's why we're here. California Free Radio. We're behind the blue curtain, telling the truth the way it is.
And for everyone out there, and Marvin Palmer, I see your comment. You investigate something, see something, get it to us. Everyone out there are hereby elect you to be a citizen journalist, which means you are now part of the police force, if you will, monitoring California, looking for something. Everything that happens in life, whether it's Watergate, back to a small break-in in a building many moons ago, or whether it's Nick Shirley or running across, seeing a sign that says Learning Center, everything begins with a precipitating event. And sometimes, even like as my tweet went viral, if you will, or post, it's a precipitating event. I elect each one of you to go out and find your own individual thing, which may change the world. Because it's up to us, everybody, to expose what we know is wrong, what's going on out there. Because it's our state, and it's up to us to defend it. It's up to us to find everything from election fraud to corruption and find out where the heck our damn money is, because we need to know. And everyone out there, every time you look around, go out, see something, say something, get it out there. Because we, Californians, aren't going to stand for it anymore. We stand for California Free, and that's why California Free Radio exists. We'll be back next week. God bless you, and good